Right, so Baltimore used this system, classification system to classify different viruses. So first of all, he used two things. One is nature of nucleic acid, which is present in the virus. Depending upon the nature of genetic material, it can be DNA virus or RNA viruses. Generally, the first two classes, class 1 and 2, is actually the DNA viruses, whereas the rest four classes are RNA viruses. So DNA viruses, so class first. Now the second criteria is how these different classes of viruses are using their genomic material to make mRNA, to synthesize mRNA or messenger RNA. So first class, if you look in the first class, so this is class 1 viruses which are having DNA. Generally, these are having double-stranded DNA, and they can directly make mRNA out of it, right? So therefore, now you will see there are some differences in the pattern by which they will synthesize mRNA, and this is the main feature. They can be classified, they can be categorized in different classes. For example, the second class of viruses are also DNA viruses, but you will see here they are generally having single strand of DNA. Now, if they are having single strand, it is either positive strand or a negative strand. So first of all, these positive and negative strand viruses will make a double-stranded DNA, uh, and then they will make mRNA out of it, right? Wait a minute, actually, I'm having an urgent call, so. Okay, so sorry for the call. Okay. So, guys, we were discussing that there are seven classes of viruses according to the Baltimore system of classification. Baltimore have used the two things to classify viruses in seven classes. First of all, the nature of genome, whether they are having DNA or RNA. So they are called DNA viruses and RNA viruses. Generally, the two classes are DNA viruses, whereas the last four classes are RNA viruses, right? So now the second thing which will make the difference between these classes is actually the method by which they will synthesize their mRNA. So based upon the type of nucleic acid in the genome, whether it is DNA and RNA, and the second thing is mode of production of mRNA. So this messenger RNA, depending upon these two features, you can classify viruses in seven different classes, right? So in the first class, there is double-stranded DNA, and it can be directly converted into the mRNA. The coding strand can be converted into the mRNA. The second class DNA viruses are generally do not have the double-stranded DNA, but they have single-stranded DNA. Now, the single-stranded DNA, first of all, being converted into the double-stranded DNA, the complementary strand is being synthesized inside the host cell. Then the mRNA is synthesized out of it, right? Now, there are RNA viruses. So class third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. These four classes here are RNA viruses. Actually, there were 7 classes. So I will tell you the 7th class also at the end when we will discuss this system. So the third class is actually having double-stranded RNA. Note here, actually, it is having double-stranded RNA, not DNA. So this double-stranded RNA is converted into mRNA. And then the fourth class is actually having plus sense single-stranded RNA being converted into a minus sense first, and then out of which the mRNA is being synthesized. The fifth class of RNA viruses is also having single-stranded RNA, but look here, it is a negative sense RNA, right? Single-stranded RNA, which is having a negative sense. So first of all, so this negative sense can be used to directly encode an mRNA. You will, a complementary strand which is being synthesized against it will be a mRNA. So it will encode for proteins. Now there is sixth class. Sixth class is using an enzyme that is called reverse transcriptase. So I'm annotating this so that you can understand this better. It will use an enzyme that is called as reverse transcriptase, RT enzyme. Okay, so this reverse transcriptase, first of all, will convert this this positive sense single-stranded RNA into a cDNA, or you can call it a single-stranded DNA. Then on this particular strand of DNA, the second strand, that is complementary strand of DNA, will be synthesized. So you will see here, this is different because it is having actually this plus sense single-stranded RNA, which is very similar to this fourth class, but there is a difference that there is double-stranded DNA intermediate. So what is intermediate? So out of this RNA, which is single-stranded RNA, and it is having positive sense, a negative, or this will not call negative, this is a DNA, single-stranded DNA is synthesized using this enzyme reverse transcriptase, which is a feature of class 6 and class 7 viruses. And finally, this double-stranded DNA intermediate will differentiate between fourth and sixth class of viruses, right? Then this double-stranded DNA will encode mRNA, out of which different proteins and polypeptides will be synthesized. So Baltimore is having the simplified version, depending upon which he was able to classify all the viruses in 7 classes. Oh, actually, we have discussed 6 classes. So the 7th class is actually hepadnaviruses, which is having double-stranded DNA, but it will replicate via an RNA intermediate. So whatever we have discussed in 6th class, the reverse is true for 7th class. For example, it will have a double-stranded DNA, but with the help of this reverse transcriptase, because this reverse transcriptase is having 3 functionalities. It will act as an RNA-dependent DNA polymerase, as well as it will act as an DNA-dependent RNA polymerase, right? Oh, sorry, DNA-dependent DNA polymerase. So because when the single-stranded DNA will be synthesized with the help of this reverse transcriptase. So it is called as this function of or the application of this reverse transcriptase is known as RNA dependent DNA polymerase. But then the same enzyme will convert the single strand of DNA into double strand, and then it is known as DNA dependent DNA polymerase. So it is having 2 functionalities, and the third functionality which is performed by this same enzyme is actually the RNase H function, which is being used to degrade the RNA strand, right? as we will discuss the HIV virus, so I will tell you all the three functionalities of these reverse transcriptase enzyme. So seventh class is using this double-stranded DNA, and it will use the reverse transcriptase enzyme also, but it will have an RNA intermediate, and therefore it is different from all the previous classes. So only two classes will use reverse transcriptase, class 6 and class 7 enzyme. So these are called retroviruses because they are having reverse transcriptase. And the class 7 enzyme are called hepatinoviruses. For example, hepatitis B virus, which is actually having double-stranded DNA genome. Okay, but they will replicate with an RNA intermediate. So if you remember this, you can underline this. Replicate with an RNA intermediate. Fine. Now, because we have classified them already in 7 classes, you can further subclassify them into the subclasses depending upon the differences, mainly in the capsid structure. What is capsid? Capsid is the coat in which the virus is generally having its genome. So the capsid is the protein coat which is protecting its genome. So genome in the viruses. So capsid structure can vary, and in the presence and absence of the membranous envelope. So envelope is present, then it is known as envelope viruses. If it is not present, then they are known as naked viruses. As we have already discussed that from where these envelopes are coming. So generally the envelope is derived from the plasma membrane of the host or from the subcellular organelles. For example, in some cases, in some viruses, it can be generated from the subcellular organelles, for example, from the nucleus or from the Golgi body, or means any subcellular organelle can donate the plasma membrane, and then membrane portion is known as envelope of the virus. But it will not become envelope. So you need to remember one thing here. These plasma membrane or the membrane of any subcellular organelle will directly not becoming the virus envelope. There are some changes which must undergo, the virus must undergo to make it an envelope. For example, some glycoproteins will be embedded before making it an envelope, functional envelope. So there are some glycoproteins which are required, and after inserting these glycoproteins, it will become a envelope. Right, so we have discussed this system of classification. It is also given in your Prescott, page number 425. There is a table. Okay, so there are 7 classes they have given, and the description is also given. The double-stranded DNA genome, and then this double-stranded DNA will be converted into the double-stranded DNA replication, and mRNA synthesis is generally from directly from the double-stranded DNA. So if it is making mRNA directly from the double-stranded DNA, as I showed you here also, this double-stranded DNA is directly converted into the mRNA. So this is class 1, which is having double-stranded DNA. For class 2nd, actually, they are having single-stranded DNA. So what is the mRNA synthesis? As I told you that mRNA synthesis is important for the classification, right? So if they are using, is this? Wait a minute. Okay. So some new students have also joined. If they are having some problem in listening or in the If the screen is not visible, they can let me know so that I can help them out. Okay. I think I'm audible and you are able to see the screen. Right. So, guys, we have discussed Baltimore system of classification of viruses. So, Baltimore have classified all the viruses into 7 classes. Students who have joined recently, please listen. Baltimore have classified all the viruses in 7 classes depending upon 2 features. So one is the nature of genome. As I told you, the first 2 classes are DNA viruses. So class 1 and class 2. What is the difference? The class 1 is actually having double stranded DNA. Class 2 is actually having single stranded DNA. Then all the classes are generally RNA viruses except the 7th one. 7th class is also having double stranded DNA. Okay. But there is a difference because they will replicate, they will make copies of their genomic material using an RNA intermediate. Okay, class 3rd onwards, class 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, they are RNA viruses, but the difference is class 3rd is double-stranded RNA viruses, class 4th is plus sense single-stranded RNA, class 5th is negative sense single-stranded RNA. Class 6 is single-stranded RNA, which is plus sense. Now you will ask what is the difference between class 4 and 6. So generally in class 6, there is an enzyme called reverse transcriptase enzyme. Therefore, they are called retroviruses, with the help of which they will convert their plus sense RNA strand, which is single strand, into DNA. So this is DNA, right? Then they will degrade this RNA strand with the help of the same enzyme reverse transcriptase, because reverse transcriptase is also having one functionality which is known as RNase H enzyme. What is RNase H? I will tell you in detail as we will discuss human immunodeficiency virus. So this is known as RNase H enzyme, which is the same enzyme, known as reverse transcriptase, RT. So this reverse transcriptase is having RNase H function because it will degrade the RNA out of this duplex or this hybrid when the DNA is synthesized by using the RNA template. So this is having 2 functionalities: RNase H, which is degrading the RNA out of this hybrid, and it is RNA dependent DNA polymerase because it is making DNA out of this RNA template. Then it will make double stranded DNA. So generally the 6th class is different because it is having DNA intermediate, and this DNA is double stranded DNA. Fine. So actually it is given in this table also that mRNA synthesis is different. It is similarly shown as we have discussed in our diagram. So for example, in class 6, this mRNA synthesis is actually from this single-stranded RNA, which is plus sense. First of all, a double-stranded DNA, which is an intermediate form, will be synthesized, and then it will encode an mRNA. And out of this mRNA, then different proteins are synthesized. Now, what is the difference in the 6th and 7th? 7th is class is actually using gapped double-stranded DNA. So, what is meaning of gapped? So it is may have segments, right? So this double-stranded DNA, first of all, will be converted into RNA and then mRNA. So during replication, actually, it is shown that this gapped double-stranded DNA will be converted into plus sense RNA, which is single strand, and then minus sense of DNA because it will also use the reverse transcriptase enzyme, so it will convert plus strand of RNA into the negative DNA. This is cDNA, right? And then it will again synthesize this gapped double-stranded DNA, which will be packed into the viral particles, right? So depending upon their method of replication, they have classified into these 7 classes. If you look this particular table in your Pathfinder, you will find that these herpes virus, pox virus, papua virus, adenovirus, all are having double-stranded DNA. So they are generally classified in class 1. Parvovirus, it is having single-stranded DNA, so it will be class 2. Reoviruses, which are having double-stranded RNA, is actually class 3rd. Toga viruses, coronavirus. Okay, so coronavirus, right? Picornavirus and retroviruses. Retroviruses are actually belonging to class 6, right? Whereas these plus sense RNA are generally belonging to class 4th, right? Then there are 2 viruses, orthomyxoviruses and paramyxoviruses, which are generally having negative sense of single-stranded RNA. If you look into this particular diagram, these negative sense RNA are class 5, right? So if you remember this scheme, you can classify these viruses into different classes if you remember this system of classification Baltimore have used. After discussing this classification system, which was used by the Baltimore to classify viruses in 7 different classes, now what may be the possible consequences due to viruses when they infect different kinds of cells? So a virus, if it is infecting an animal cell, can have these possibilities. So first of all, it can transform the normal cell, animal cell, into a tumor cell, because it will lead to unregulated proliferation. And there are 2 terms which are frequently used for such kind of cells. One is called neoplasia, one is called anaplasia. I will tell you what is the difference between these 2 terms. But before moving into this details, there are other possibilities also that a virus, the small dot is virus, right? So it is infecting an animal cell. It will make different copies, so many copies inside the animal cell, and then the viral load is very high inside the cytosol. It can lyse that particular cell to release the viral particles. So lysis is one possibility. Then there is persistent infection, when it will not lyse the bacterial or animal cell, but this virus will continue to release viral particles by the process of budding, right? So there are other processes also. Budding is one. So the plasma membrane will punches off each time, and it will release some of the viruses. In case of bacteriophages also, we have discussed M13, which is a secretory bacteriophage, which will infect E. coli. It will also will not lyse the bacterial cell, right? We have discussed that already. But in case of animal viruses also, this is also possible that they will not lyse the animal cells, and they will continue to release the viral particles by the process of budding. Then there is latent infection. Latent infection is actually, in the latent infection, there are delay between infection by the virus and the symptoms you will observe. So latent infection, there is a delay, there is a gap between infection by the virus and lytic event. So ultimately, this particular cell will be lysed in the same fashion, this lysis, it will show the lysis, but not immediately. There will be a delay, or there will be a gap before showing this lytic morphology. Okay. One example is given in latent infection, for example, cold sores. So what is cold sore? Cold sore is actually the blisters which generally happen in humans on their, generally they are observed on lips or near nose. Okay, so if there is a blister, means there is small blisters appear over lips or near nose, then this is known as cold sore. And this cold sores are generally caused by a virus, which is known as herpes simplex virus. Okay. So this herpes simplex infection is contagious. What is contagious? Contagious is it can spread by touch or if you come in contact with some other person which is actually having cold sores. Or in generally people say that if you eat the food with some other people, okay, or some other person, so generally you may have this kind of infection. So it is given there is lytic infection, there is persistent infection, latent infection, and transformation. Transformation is very important because if a virus is infecting an animal cell and if it is modifying this animal cell so that it will be converted into a tumor cell or a cancerous cell, then it will be very harmful for that particular organism, right? Because it will show unregulated proliferation. Now there are two terms, one is neoplasia and anaplasia. We will discuss these in detail. If you are having a query, please ask me. Out of these terms, you should remember that these are the possibilities by which a virus can infect an animal cell. So first of all, neoplasia. Neoplasia is a tumor. Generally, what is tumor? So tumor is a growth or a lump of tissue because there are so many cells after division. It will result from neoplasia. So the tumor is a result of neoplasia. So what is neoplasia? Neoplasia is abnormal new cell growth and reproduction due to the loss of regulation. If cells or the animal cells exactly are not having regulated proliferation or they are showing unregulated or unrestricted proliferation, this is known as neoplasia because it will give rise to a tumor-like condition or a lump of tissue. So abnormal new cell growth and reproduction due to the loss of regulation or unchecked growth is called neoplasia. Now, how it is different from anaplasia? So, tumor cells have aberrant shapes and altered plasma membrane that may contain distinctive tumor antigens. It is having tumor antigens. Antigen is those small structures which will bind with antibodies, right? So, their unregulated proliferation and loss of differentiation result in invasive growth that form unorganized cell mass. This reversion to a more primitive and less differentiated state is actually called anaplasia. Listen, both the terms are actually related, but they are different terms. So actually they are showing different features. If a cell or the population of cell is showing abnormal growth and unrestricted proliferation, and they will make a lump of tissue or the tumor-like structure, then it is called neoplasia, right? But anaplasia is actually the reversion of more primitive or the normal cells into an generally the cells are highly differentiated because they are made for different functions. For example, our neurons, right? Muscle cells. So they are highly differentiated. But if they are becoming tumor cells or there is some problem in the cells, so these cancer cells are less differentiated states. They will not differentiate fully. And then therefore this term is known as anaplasia. Anaplasia is the reversion of when normal cells will be converted into a more primitive and less differentiated state, right? So the same thing with whatever we had discussed in Pathfinder, it is also given here. The virus, when infecting an animal cell, it will make different several copies inside the during rapid multiplication. It will make viral particles inside the cell and then it will lyse the cell. So this is called acute infection. The second infection is actually latent. Latent and chronic is two types of persistent infection. So persistent infection we have discussed. Wait a minute. So during persistent infection, as I showed you here, in this particular infection, the infected cell remain alive, so there is no lysis, and viral particles will be produced indefinitely without lysing the animal cell. Okay, so or any host cell. So this is persistent infection. Now look into this diagram. This persistent infection can be classified into two other types. One is latent, one is chronic. Latent is, it is so latent is actually if it is quick. So the activation is quick. So what will happen, viral components are present, but the host cells is not harmed because it is persistent type. But when the activation will take place, it will be converted into this form and then it will lyse the bacterial cell or the animal cell or any host cell. Whereas in case of chronic infection, it will be delayed, means it will take more time. It is a slow release of viral particles without lysing the cell. So it will continue to release the viral particles and it will not lyse this host cell, whether it is bacterial or animal cell, right? Now there is last one which we have already discussed though. So this is actually the transformation into a malignant cell or a tumor or cancerous cell. So with the help of activation of host proto-oncogenes, so these proto-oncogenes will be converted into oncogenes and or they will insert the oncogene from other animals so that this cell will have a different phenotype or they will show unregulated proliferation. They will continue to replicate, continue to divide, and they will make a mass of cells that is known as cancer or the tumor. So tumor is the first stage, and then this cancer, so malignant form is actually when the tumor cells will spread in different parts of the body and they will make different tumors. This particular form is known as malignant. So depending upon infection, you can classify either benign or malignant. Okay, so depending upon the stage of infection. Generally, the benign tumor is the initial stage, and then it will be converted into the malignant form. Now, this table is also a very important because they can be directly asked in various competitive examinations. So, for example, poliovirus. Poliovirus is having receptors over animal cells which will recognize CD155, for example. You already know HIV-1, so it will recognize cluster of differentiation 4 on, so where these CD4 particles or molecules are present. So let me annotate this. CD4 are present on T helper cells. So T helper cells, I cannot write H, so I'm writing T helper cells. So there are various kinds of receptors which are present over animal cells. These receptors will be recognized by viruses, and therefore these receptors will help in the penetration of virus inside the animal cell. So these receptors will be helping these viruses in the infection process. For example, adeno-associated virus, it will recognize the heparan sulfate which is present over animal cell. Epstein-Barr virus will recognize CD21. Herpes simplex virus, which is a causative agent of cold sores, it will recognize heparan sulfate. Again, HIV-1 virus will recognize CD4 over T helper cells. Not only this, it can also recognize CCR5, which are present over macrophages. So this is also true. Now you need to remember one more thing is actually this T helper cells also having co-receptors. So this is the main receptor CD4, but they are having other receptors also, which is known as CXCR4. So these both will be recognized by HIV-1 virus when it is infecting the helper cells. One more thing you should remember, the T helper cells and T cytotoxic cell, TC cells, they are present in our body generally 2:1, right? But after the infection of HIV, what will happen? This ratio will be changed because the T helper cell will be infected with virus and their number will be decreasing, right? So the number will decrease, then ultimately what will happen? The number of TC cells will be relatively high. Therefore, this ratio can be used initially. So in the normal patient, which is not infected with HIV, this ratio is generally 2:1. But you will see the more T cytotoxic cell in comparison to T helper cells in the individuals which are infected with this particular virus, HIV. So the AIDS patients are generally having this ratio, uh, ulta, right? 1:2. So this ratio is used to identify the stage of infection. So it will not directly become 1:2. So first of all, it will be some 1.5, 1.67, right? Something like that. So this ratio, if it is 1:2 or less than this, then this T helper cells are very, very less in this particular patient. So therefore, the stage of infection can be uh, predicted depending upon this ratio. Okay, so next is influenza virus. It will recognize the sialic acid receptors present over the animal cells. So if you somewhere, if you find this, this is also true. So this is called N-acetylnuraminic acid, which is the short name. It is also known as sialic acid. So if somewhere you find this NaNA or N-acetylnuraminic acid, both are same. Sialic acid is the name for this only. No. Rabies virus, it will recognize the acetylcholine receptors. So, okay, so there are some receptors present over neurons to which acetylcholine molecule will bind, which is a neurotransmitter, right? So these receptors not only bind with acetylcholine molecules or the neurotransmitters, these can also bind with the rabies virus. So therefore, the patient which is having rabies infection is having hydrophobia, means it will hydrophobic means it will not it will avoid water. And the poliovirus CD155, it is not given in this, but if you find in Prescott, you will definitely find this one. I hope this is clear, and then we can move to. Now you can divide all the stages into different. So the life cycle of animal viruses can be classified or can be divided into different phases. First phase is virus adsorption and attachment to the host cell or the animal cell. Viral entry into the host cell, replication of the viral genome within the host cell, viral assembly or the viral particles will be assembled within the cytoplasm, and then finally it will be released. So viral release after either persistent infection, it will not lyse the cell, but if it is lytic infection or latent infection, ultimately it will release the viral particle by lysing the host cell or the animal cell. It is shown here also that there will be adsorption. The fusion is seen only in enveloped viruses. So there are two kinds of viruses, enveloped and naked viruses. So first is non-enveloped or naked viruses. There is no fusion. After binding to this or adsorb over the animal cell, it will release the genome into the animal cell or the cytoplasm. But if it is enveloped virus, So from where this envelope is coming? It is coming from the plasma membrane only. So if this envelope virus is binding with an animal cell, it will fuse with this plasma membrane, so that the membrane portion will fuse with the plasma membrane. And because the plasma membrane is having self-sealing property, right? So this nucleocapsid then will enter into the cytoplasm. As you will see the difference here, the fusion result into the entry of nucleocapsid into the cytoplasm, where the uncoating will take place. But in this case, this capsid will not enter, only the genomic material is entering. Or if it is the second case, so this is in this form of viral entry, the complete molecule or the virus of virion will be taken into a vesicle, and then this will be sorry. So this vesicle will pinch off from the plasma membrane, and then it will going further processing. Right. So there are differences between enveloped and non-enveloped viruses. You can read this from here. It is written in very simple words. Then the last one is actually called receptor-mediated endocytosis. It can happen in both the cases, whether it is naked virus or enveloped virus. In both the cases, the virus can enter by this receptor-mediated endocytosis, where there is a receptor. As we have discussed so many receptors, CD155, CD21, CD4, sialic acid, heparan sulfate, and so on, they can help in the uptake of virus. Therefore, it is known as receptor-mediated endocytosis. So both type of viruses can enter by this process, whether they are enveloped viruses or whether they are non-enveloped viruses. Okay. Now there are two type of viruses. One is DNA viruses and RNA viruses. DNA viruses, soon after the penetration or moving into the cytoplasm, the viral nucleic acid is prepared for expression and replication, right? Okay. So guys, we have discussed these already in the Baltimore system of classification. You can read them, and if you find any problem, you can ask. Viral assembly, viral release, you can read them also. Then there is a table which is important. Now it is showing the differences between bacteriophages and eukaryotic viruses. Okay. Now what is bacteriophages? Bacteriophages are the viruses which are infecting bacteria, whereas eukaryotic viruses are those viruses which are infecting the animal cells, for example, humans, right? So what are the differences now? Differences are very, so both are unique. Viral genome, generally the bacteriophage, the virus which is infecting the bacteria cannot infect the animals, right? Why it is not able to infect? Because they are having certain differences. Or a virus which is infecting the plants will not infect the animals, or vice versa. Viral genome typically injected without capsid into the cell. If you remember, the bacteriophages, for example, lambda phage or M13, they do not, because you know the size of bacterial cell is less in comparison to the animal cell, therefore it will not able to accommodate the complete viral particle. Therefore, generally only the genomic portion is injected into the cytoplasm, not the capsid part. So capsid will remain outside, the genome will go inside. and then it will make several copies. Whereas if you look in eukaryotic viruses, so viral genome is not injected into the host cell. Virion is typically taken up inside the cell. The complete viral particle, or this virion, which is the complete virus, will be uptaken by the animal cell because the size of cell is large here. No segmented genomes. If you see in bacteriophages and viruses which infect bacteria, there is no segmented genomes reported, but in case of animal viruses, for example, influenza virus, the genome is segmented. So some single-stranded RNA viruses have segmented genomes, means their genomes are broken into pieces. Now, bacteria is not having this 5' capping and tail, poly A tail, and their mRNA. Also, their viruses do not have these features. There is no 5' capping, no poly A tail, and there is bacteriophage proteins rarely penetrate the host cell except this M13, right? So mostly the proteins which is making the capsid portion, or generally some protein enzymes which are present inside the viral particle, for example, in case of HIV virus. So HIV is actually having three enzymes: integrase, protease, and reverse transcriptase. So these proteins generally do not enter into the bacteria. But in case of animal cells, because complete viruses can enter the cell, therefore the viral proteins commonly enter the cell. Also, they do have 5' ends, capping, and 3' tailing. The tail is poly A tail, similar, which is mRNA. You have discussed this already. Okay. Now, one category of viruses which we have classified in our 6th class are called retroviruses, right? And one very interesting retrovirus is HIV virus, human immunodeficiency virus. So we will discuss HIV-1 here. Now, many questions has been asked from this particular section. Okay, there is a query. Ankit is asking, what is the role of segmented DNA? Because segmented DNA is helping these viruses to make different variants or the subtypes. For example, influenza virus. So if you remember, there are different pandemics. For example, swine flu, right? Bird flu, and so many things. So these influenza viruses, for example, telling this particular query, answering your query in the terms of influenza. You can think of other viruses can have the same benefit, right? So what is the benefit to the virus? For example, generally influenza viruses having two type of antigens. One is called hemagglutinin, second is called neuraminidase, right? HN. H for hemagglutinin and for neuraminidase. So generally these two features are present, two type of antigens are present over influenza virus. Now, if you can give these H and N a number, you can make different kinds of variants of these influenza virus, right? For example, H1N1. So this H1N1 is actually responsible for swine flu. The swine flu, which was predominant in 2009, and also in Spanish flu. So this is due to H1N1. And H3N2, for example, is, for example, Hong Kong flu or London flu. So they are actually having H3N2. Or we can take one more example, which is important. For example, Asian flu, which is H2N2, right? So now you will look here, there are different H and N possibilities. So from where these H and N are coming, because they are having segmented genomes, and these segments are having this H and N portions. So the genome can recombine with each other. So I will tell you how many segments are present. So H is generally present in 1 to 16 fragments, and N is generally present in 9 fragments, right, in influenza A virus. So N is generally having 1 to 9. Now you can make different combinations. So each time when a combination will form, it will give some kind of pandemic, some kind of new strain. So therefore, different kinds of viruses can be generated from the same virus population. I hope you are able to get this. If not, please let me know. I will try to explain it again to you. Guys, do you have the same query or you want to ask something else? Please let me know so that we can move. All right. Because different viruses, for example, influenza, this is for influenza subtype A. So influenza virus A is actually having two type of segments in their genome. One is H, encoding for hemagglutinin. Second is encoding for neuraminidase enzyme, right? So hemagglutinin is already having 1 to 16 fragments, and neuraminidase is also having these segments, right? 1 to 9. If you combine N with H, so it will make H1, N1, S3, N2, S2, N2. Now each time they will give different type of properties to that particular virus. So now you need to remember that this H1N1 is known for Spanish flu, for swine flu, right? Whereas S3N2 is responsible for Hong Kong and London flu, whereas this H2N2 is responsible for Asian flu. So different names are given depending upon the strain which is derived, right? There is bird flu also. If you find it bird flu, so bird flu is actually, for example, H5N1 is called as bird flu. And so on. So two type of question can be asked from this particular discussion. Which strain of influenza is actually responsible for example, bird flu, for example, for the Spanish and swine flu, Hong Kong or London flu, and this is called Asian flu. So you need to remember the strains also, because these strains are important. They are responsible for one specific kind of epidemic or pandemic. Now, the first one which we were discussing actually is known as retroviruses. Retroviruses are members of class 6, if you remember. So we have discussed class 6. Class 6 is single-stranded RNA genome which are actually having plus sense, and they will make a double-stranded DNA out of it, and then again single-stranded RNA. Because they are having reverse transcriptase enzyme, therefore they can make a DNA copy out of RNA template. Therefore, the one is a very important feature of these viruses is they have or they replicate through DNA intermediate. Since they are having the single-stranded RNA, but they are able to replicate via this DNA intermediate, which is double-stranded. And this is non-segmented, right? So there are copies of identical single-stranded RNA molecule, all retroviral genomic RNA containing this 3 genes that is known as glucose, this GAG, pol, and ENV. ENV for envelope, pol for polymerase, GAG for glycosaminoglycans or the capsid portion. Okay, so we will discuss them in detail. So HIV-1 is actually having all these three genes. So these three genes are feature of any retrovirus, GAG, POL, and ENV, right? But HIV-1 is actually having 9 genes. We will discuss all 9 genes in detail. Now the retroviral life cycle proceed in reverse transcriber and the RNA genome with double-stranded DNA. We have discussed this already, and one important feature is provirus. So this provirus, you need to remember what is provirus. This is very similar to the prophage. We have discussed prophage in case of bacteria or bacteriophages. In case of animal viruses, this is known as provirus. So once the double-stranded DNA copy is made, it can be integrated into the host genome in the nucleus, and this nucleus copy of the viral genome is known as provirus. Okay, what else? Okay, so let's discuss this. So these are the major steps in which this retroviral infection will take place. First is entrance into the cell via fusion. So first of all, this virus or viral particle will fuse with the animal cell. After fusion, it will be uptaken by the animal cell, which is generally, in case of HIV, the cells which will uptake the virus is known as T helper cells or macrophages. So it is given here actually, the structure of viral particle. So this is our virus, HIV virus. HIV virus is characterized by having, it is an enveloped virus. Envelope is coming from the host plasma membrane during the process of budding. It will have 2 strands of single-stranded RNA, which are plus ends, and it will have 3 enzymes. So you can see 3 dots here, 1, 2, 3. These 3 enzymes are actually reverse transcriptase, integrase, and protease. It will have envelope. In the envelope, it will have 2 types of glycoproteins. So you can see this black portion here. So this is actually GP120. You can see here, this is spike. We also had discussed papillomers, right? So these GP120 will help this virus. So you need to note this here only. This question has been asked. So this GP120 is actually interacting with CD4, which is present over T helper cells, right? CD4 molecules which are present over T helper cells, because these are present outside, whereas the transmembrane portion is known as GP41, which is not having role in interaction with the animal cell. So major receptors or major glycoprotein which will help in the binding of this virus HIV to the host cell, to the CD4 molecules which are present over T helper cells. This is T helper cell. It will have some kind of receptors. These are called as CD4 receptors. The CD4 receptor will bind with GP120. So kindly note this. Now there are 2 important things are also in this diagram. One is called as protein 17 and one is called protein 24. So the matrix is actually 17, but the capsid region inside which the genetic material is safe is known as 24. So 24 and 17 are the molecular weight of these proteins which are making these structures. So the matrix protein is called P17 because it is having 17 kilodalton molecular weight, whereas it is high molecular weight protein which is making the matrix, which is making the capsid region or the capsomeres. So P24 is actually present inside the matrix and it is making the capsomeres, and these capsomeres will be making the capsid inside which the genetic material of HIV virus or HIV-1 is safe from various nucleus. Right, so we had discussed this HIV structure. This is important. You need to remember a few things. So first of all, this will fuse with the cell membrane over T helper cells or macrophages. Uncoating of virion. So once the virus particle is uptaken by the T helper cell, the uncoating process will take place. What is uncoating? Uncoating is the capsid portion will release the genetic material. Genetic material is two single-stranded RNA molecules which will be released inside the cytoplasm of T helper cell, right? Reverse transcription of RNA genome into a single-stranded DNA that is subsequently converted into a double-stranded DNA, right? By DNA polymerase activity of the same enzyme. Then enter into the nucleus, it will integrate into the nucleus, and then it is known as provirus. Transcription of retroviral DNA. The transcription is done with the help of host enzymes, so leading to the formation of viral mRNA and viral genomic RNA, which will be loaded into the viral particles. Assembly and encapsulation of the genomic RNA into the nucleocapsid, into the cytoplasm, and then finally there will be budding of the enveloped viruses at the cytoplasmic membrane and release from the cell. T helper cell will release the viruses, but the cell which is infected by virus will have slow metabolism. So this is the process of reverse transcription, how it will. So actually this diagram should come after this particular structure actually. Okay. So what will happen? First of all, this virus will fuse itself to the T helper cell. Okay. So these GP120 or glycoprotein 120 will be interacting with the CD4 molecules present over T helper cell. Once the virus is uptaken by the T helper cell or macrophage, there will be release of these two strands, these two single-stranded RNA molecules inside the cytoplasm of the T helper cell or macrophage. Now, the reverse transcriptase enzyme is present with the virus itself. Therefore, in the cytoplasm, the process of reverse transcription will start. Not only this particular virus particle is bring an tRNA molecule which will be used as a primer. Okay, so now see here how this reverse transcription process will take place in the cytoplasm of the infected cell. So as you remember from the molecular biology portion, generally the transcription is a process which will take place in the nucleus of an animal cell or in eukaryotes. But in case of HIV or human immunodeficiency virus, this process of reverse transcription is taking place in the cytoplasm because it is already having the enzyme which is necessary for the reverse transcription. It is known as reverse transcriptase enzyme. So first of all, these retroviruses are part of class 6 in Baltimore system of classification because they will replicate themselves by a double-stranded DNA intermediate. Okay, The second thing is because they are having single-stranded RNA, which is plus sense. Now there are reasons. These reasons are present over these single-stranded RNA. So these are RU5, PBS, or polymer binding site. Okay, PBS is actually the reason with which the primer will bind. In this case of HIV virus, the primer is used as tRNA. This tRNA, which will encoding or which will tRNA are carriers of amino acids, right? So the tRNA for lysine is actually used for this particular purpose as a primer. So you need to note this particular thing from here. So a specific cellular tRNA, for example, tRNA of lysine will be used as a primer. This primer hybridizes to the primer binding site that is called PBS of the genomic RNA, which is single-stranded plus sense. And then it will make a minus strand DNA out of it with the help of RNA-dependent DNA polymerase, which is reverse transcriptase actually. So now look here. I hope it will be clear from the diagram. See, so this tRNA, which is encoding for lysine, will be hybridized to this region of this single-stranded RNA genome, which is present in 2 copies in the HIV-1, right? So primer binding site, it will make complementary base pairing to this, and then it will start synthesizing a complementary strand over this RNA. So minus strand DNA synthesis. Okay. Now there are 2 jumps actually. One is what is PPT here? PPT is actually the polypurine tract. Okay, so if they are having purines, what are purines? Purines are AG. In high number, then this is polypurine tract. So there is a use of this PPT also. I will tell you, it will not be degraded actually. So this primer will hybridize to the primer binding site and will start synthesizing a complementary strand over this template. This template is RNA. This minus strand DNA synthesis, which is complementary DNA strand, it is actually using the reverse transcriptase enzyme. So you can write RT here. With the help of reverse transcriptase, this will make a complementary strand of DNA. So this is called as, this function is known as RNA dependent DNA polymerase because it is using RNA template. Then finally, this synthesized strand will be complementary to this R portion. So now it can bind to the other side of the same RNA genome or the template. So this is called first jump in this particular process, or this first jump. So it is written in your book actually. I will. So what is the first jump? The newly synthesized minus strand DNA hybridizes with the terminal R region of 3' end of the viral RNA, and this is known as process. So we have discussed this. The primer will bind to the primer binding site. Then reverse transcriptase enzyme catalyzes the formation of DNA. This is called RNA dependent DNA synthesis. Synthesis of minus strand DNA generates an RNA DNA hybrid. This hybrid, the RNA out of this hybrid will be degraded by the RNase H activity of reverse transcriptase. So if someone asks you what is RNase H, or this is a nuclease which will specifically cleave the RNA template. And this RNA should be in hybrid. So H4 hybrid, DNA RNA hybrid. So if there is any hybrid which is having DNA RNA, okay, so heteroduplex. Out of this heteroduplex, the RNA will be degraded by the specific enzyme called RNase H. In HIV, this RNase H functionality is present itself in the reverse transcriptase. So as you will see here, during the first jump, then this will move from here because it is having R complementary strand here. So this R will make hybridization with this R region, which is also present over this 3' end. Okay, and because this will synthesize the DNA in this direction, this is actually 5' to 3'. It will continue to synthesize the minus strand. This is called the elongation step. And you will see that it will degrade the RNase H domain of reverse transcriptase will function simultaneously. It will degrade the RNA template. So it will be degraded. So once the synthesis of complementary strand of DNA is over, you will see that the RNA is degraded. It will be degraded into small fragments. But there is a fragment that is called PPT will not be degraded because it is called polypurine tract, means it is having AG in high proportions. Therefore, it will not be cleaved, and from here, then there is another complementary strand of DNA synthesis will take place using this particular DNA strand as template. So therefore, it is known as DNA dependent DNA synthesis to make a double stranded DNA. This is called second jump because a complementary strand, this PBS site, primer binding site, will be copied because this primer is already attached to this strand, right? This PBS region is also present in the 5' end, 3' end of this strand. So it will bind, it will hybridize to the 3' end. So this is 5', this is 3', then this will be the complementary strands 5', and it will elongate in the 3' direction. So 5' to 3' synthesis, it will result into a double-stranded DNA, and then this DNA will move into the nucleus through nuclear pore complex and will be integrated into the host genome to make a provirus. If you see, there is a region on both the ends which is actually similar. So it is having U3R, U5, and then primer binding sites. So this is called long terminal repeats. So these terminal repeats are actually protecting this genome, viral genome, which is present in the center, which will encode for different kinds of proteins, okay, or enzymes. When it will integrate into the host genome, so these long terminal repeats are present, and when it can be cleaved from somewhere. So if some few nucleotides will be lost somehow, it will not in fact affect the function of those genes which are present in the middle of the genome. Right? So everything is written in the figure. Whatever we have discussed, you can go through. Now the disease which is called acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, which is caused due to this human immunodeficiency virus. First of all, it was recognized in USA in 1981 in Los Angeles, New York, and San Francisco, when a group of patients displayed the features of PCP. What is PCP? Pneumocystis carinii pneumonia. So there is a fungal pathogen which after infection, the patient will show the pneumonia-like symptoms. And there is another, this is called Pneumocystis carinii. Okay, so this is also another opportunistic fungal pathogen. What is opportunistic pathogens are those which generally do not cause disease in humans, but if our immune system is very, very weak, then these fungal pathogens can cause infection. And these infections are very harmful because these will show devastating effects. For example, pneumonia and another fungal pathogen, Pneumocystis carinii, will this carinii pneumonia is caused due to this Pneumocystis carinii, and the second one is Kaposi sarcoma, which is extremely rare skin tumor. So these two type of diseases were reported in the patients which were infected with HIV. Okay, so one is PCP and second is Kaposi sarcoma. A more complete evaluation of the patient showed that they had in common a marked deficiency of cellular immune responses. So because they are having weak immune systems, their cellular immune responses are not working, and therefore a significant decrease in the subpopulation of the T cells that carrying the CD4 markers. So these are T helper cells actually. Because the HIV will infect the helper cells, then the discovery of HIV virus and characterized by the Luc Montagnier and Paris and Robert Gallo at the same time, and therefore they were given suffering from the lymphadenopathy. HIV belong to the family of human retroviruses and some family of lentiviruses. AIDS is caused primarily due to HIV-1. In some cases, and very few cases, the HIV-2 is also infecting, but majority of cases are due to HIV-1 only. So this also has been asked. This virus is closely related to HTLV. This is, okay, so HTLV is given somewhere. Yeah. Human T lymphotropic virus, HTLV1 and HTLV2, which has been isolated from the individuals with hairy cell leukemia. There's another virus called simian immunodeficiency virus, which is related to both, and it is actually you can call it as ancestor of both the viruses, SIV. So actually, African green monkeys were having this particular virus SIV, out of which both the viruses have been derived, HIV-1 and HIV-2. There are other viruses in the same group, lymphadenopathy associated virus, LAV, STLV3, and ARV, AIDS associated retrovirus. We have discussed about the structure of HIV-1. So it is having two strands of single-stranded RNA. It is having GP120, 41. These are glycoproteins. So now you need to remember that GP120 is responsible for interaction with the CD4 cells, right? Whereas GP41 is this is present inside the plasma membrane or this envelope. So integrated inside the plasma membrane. Then there is GP is actually glycoprotein, and number is the mass of protein which is attached to this glycoprotein. Glyco means carbohydrate, and protein is a combination of carbohydrate with proteins. Thousands of Daltons. So kilodalton is actually referring to this particular weight. Then there are two other proteins we have discussed, P17, which is called matrix protein, and 24, which is called capsid or capsomere protein, right? So this is all given. And there are 9 genes. So the genome of HIV-1 can be divided into 9 genes, out of which it is having 2 copies of certain genes. So the 2 genes you can see in this particular diagram, they are present in 2 copies, REV and TAT, TAT, right? So I will tell you what is the functions of these all genes. So first of all, GAG, POL, and ENV, these are the major 3 genes which are present in retroviruses. a single-stranded RNA genome. Genome of most retroviruses contain only 3 genes, GAG, POL, and ENV. HIV-1 contain 9 genes. So these are GAG, POL, ENV, VIF, VPU, VPR, TAT, RAV, NAF. Okay. So as we have discussed, the flanking, these genes are the long terminal repeats. So you can see here also U3 or U5, and here also U3 or U5, and there is a PBS, primer binding site here. So these are present. Now, what is the difference between HIV-1 and HIV-2? Generally, HIV-1, so the major difference between HIV-1 and HIV-2 is the HIV-2 lack this VPU gene. So as you can see, this VPU here, it is not present in VPU is not present in HIV-2, but it is present in HIV-1. Whereas HIV-2 is actually, instead of VPU, it is having VPX gene. So you need to remember this. This is the major difference between HIV-1 and HIV-2. Only a single gene, different. The functions are given here. So you need to remember these functions from this particular chart. So the three major genes which are present in all the retroviruses are GAG, POL, and ENV. ENV for envelope glycoprotein, GP120 and 41. POL is actually encoding for three different enzymes. One is reverse transcriptase, which is having three functions: RNase H, RNA-dependent DNA polymerase, and DNA-dependent DNA polymerase. Protease, which is cleaving the proteins. And third one is integrase, which is responsible for the integration of double-stranded DNA into the host genome. Whereas the GAG is nucleocapsid protein, which is making this capsomeres. Okay, so there are three genes which are present in all the retroviruses, but if you are talking in terms of HIV-1, it is having additional genes. So all the 9 genes are given here. VIF, viral infectivity particle. So V for viral, IF for infectivity. So promotes the infectivity of the viral particle. VPU, for example, it is present in HIV-1. It is not present in HIV-2, as we have discussed. Required for efficient viral assembly and budding. Okay, so the viral particle will be coming out of the host cell with the help of this VPU. VPR weakly inactivates the transcription of proviral DNA. So they activate the transcription. And there is another VPR is weakly activating, whereas the TAT is actually strongly activating the transcription of proviral DNA. There is REV. REV export the unspliced and singly spliced mRNA from the nucleus. So I will tell you what is the function of REV here. REV, if you talk about REV, suppose this is a cell, animal cell, which is infected by HIV. So this REV is having role in the release of, so the chromosome will encode RNA polymerase 2 and there is complete splicing, or incomplete, that is partial splicing or no splicing at all. So if there are introns, there should be splicing, and if there is no intron, there should be no splicing, right? So first of all, you can note these two forms are actually having introns, which will make ENV, VPU, VPR, VIF. Okay, so this is partially or single splicing. If there is no splicing, it may lead to the formation of genomic RNA or a protein or a polyprotein, which is actually having this glycosaminoglycan GAG and GAG pole polypeptides after translation. So the REV dependent release of partially spliced or unspliced mRNA out of this nucleus into the cytoplasm. Whereas if it is completely spliced, the introns are removed, then it is not required, the REV independent. Okay. And this is happening in case of NAF, TAT, and REV proteins, which are other proteins of HIV-1 virus. So if you remember all these proteins, all these genes here, GAG, POL, ENV, VIF, viral infectivity particle, VPU, which is required for efficient assembly and budding, VPR, weakly activating the transcription of proviral DNA, TAT is strongly activating the replication, RAV is required for unspliced export of these unspliced and not spliced big RNA molecules out of mRNA molecules out of the nucleus. Okay, so REV is required. NEF is this gene will encode some of the proteins which will increase the viral replication, down regulate the host cell CD4. Because the host cell is having CD4 markers, the T helper cells are having CD4 markers, so it will increase the viral application, but it will decrease the CD4 expression over T helper cells. So this is the function of the last gene which is present in the viral genome. Okay, so now how this infection is taking place, though I have discussed this already with you, but so during infection, generally infecting the T helper cells of our immune system, right? So HIV-1 primarily infect the T helper cells and macrophages. I told you that T helper cells are having CD4 markers, cluster of differentiation 4. Therefore, they can bind directly with GP120, which is present over HIV. So you need to remember this. Let me annotate. So this HIV is actually having, which is the virus, it is having GP120, and the CD4s are present over T helper cells. So the T helper cells in the animal cells, T helper animal cells are infected with HIV, and they will have CD4, cluster of differentiation 4. It is a glycoprotein. So both will interact. 120, GP120 or glycoprotein 120 will interact with CD4, and therefore not only the CD4 are present over T helper cell, they are also present over monocytes. Monocytes are cells out of which the macrophages are made. So in the blood circulation, they are monocytes, but if they come into the tissues, they are called macrophages. So the only difference is monocytes are small, macrophages are big, because these are fully differentiated cells. Dendritic cells. Dendritic cells are also called antigen presenting cells. So they are also having these CD4 markers over them. Therefore, the HIV can infect these type of cells, monocytes, macrophages, dendritic cells, or the T helper cells in our immune system. Therefore, they will decrease our immunity. Fusion and viral entry also require interaction with chemokine co-receptor. As I told you, the chemokine co-receptor is also required. So these are two types. In case of macrophages, it is called CCR5, whereas in case of T helper cells, it is CXCR4, which is also called fusion. So you can underline these. So these are called chemokine co-receptors, which are also required during infection. One is CCR5, which is present over macrophages and monocytes, because I told you monocyte will make macrophages in tissues, right? They will be differentiated into macrophages. Just like, have you seen the Hulk? Okay, so these monocytes are small cells. They are present in the blood circulation, but once they will move into the site of infection or the tissues, they will be converted into big cells called macrophages. Okay, so the chemokine co-receptors, C for chemokine, Co for C, and R for receptor. These are CCR5. And okay, if the chemokine receptor is present over T helper cells, this is called as CXCR4. So this CXCR4 is actually also called as fusin. Okay, so somewhere if you find fusin, please consider this, because this is the same term for CXCR4. It is also known as fusin. It is only present over T helper cells, which are the cells of our immune system. Chemokine receptors are GPCR, G protein coupled receptors. We have studied cell signaling and we have discussed GPCR signaling in details. So these chemokine receptors, for example, CCR5 and CXCR4, these are chemokine receptors and they are GPCRs. Means, what is GPCR? G protein coupled receptors mean they will bind with G proteins, and G protein will be activated by GTP. And also they are present in the plasma membrane in the form of serpentine molecule. Means they are crossing the plasma membrane 7 times. 7 transmembrane helices they are having 7 transmembrane helices. Therefore, they can be written as, you can write a GPCR as 7 transmembrane, 7 TM. Right, if you find it 7 TM somewhere, this is actually GPCR, because 7 transmembrane helices are only present in GPCRs. Plasma membrane of leukocytes. Leukocytes are WBCs, white blood cells. Right. After fusion with the host cell, nucleocapsid containing viral genome and enzyme, that are the 3 enzymes, reverse transcriptase, protease, and integrase, will be released into the cytoplasm. Viral genome and enzymes are released following the removal, that is called uncoating. Uncoating is the removal of coat on the protein capsid, viral capsid. In the cytoplasm or cytosol, single-stranded RNA genome will be reverse transcribed into to make a double-stranded DNA, as we have discussed in the last diagram. They will be converted into double-stranded DNA and then will be integrated. This double-stranded DNA will move into the nucleus of the host cell, where it will be integrated into the host chromosome. The 2 enzymatic functions of reverse transcriptase are given here, polymerase and RNase H. And also polymerase can be divided into 2 functions. One is called RNA dependent DNA polymerase, and one is called DNA dependent DNA polymerase. So it is actually having 3 functions. So this question also has been asked. So there are 3 functionalities of reverse transcriptase which are written here. Near the 5' end of the viral genome, there is a sequence called primer binding site to which the tRNA will bind. We have discussed all this, so you can see the diagram which is given on previous page, so that you will understand all this. Then what else we are left with? Okay, biogenesis and transport. So, once the double-stranded DNA is formed, and this will be integrated into the viral, into the host genome, sorry. So this is the host genome in the chromosome, right? So this double-stranded DNA will be integrated into this chromosome somewhere with the help of integrase enzyme, which is the enzyme of virus itself. So that integrase will integrate the viral genome into the host chromosome. And then with the help of this double-stranded DNA now, RNA polymerase 2, because this is happening inside the nucleus of host cell, RNA polymerase 2, which is making mRNA out of this double-stranded DNA, it will also transcribe the viral DNA, which is present somewhere in the chromosome, right? And then out of this mRNA, then this mRNA, either spliced or unspliced version or the partially spliced, this will be translocated into the cytoplasm, cytosol, and then different products of different genes will be formed. For example, ENV, VPU, VPR, VPF, all these will be formed in the cytoplasm when the partially spliced version of mRNA will be transported into the cytoplasm. Whereas, if you see here, the STAT, NAF, REV, mRNA, the genes which are encoding these mRNA, or these mRNA will making a protein in the cytoplasm, they will be exported out of nucleus. They do not require REV protein because these are very small in size. They can be transported without any help, right? So if you remember, the STAT was strongly activating the transcription. What is the function of NAF? NEF? NAF is actually increasing the viral replication. It is downregulating the CD4. And the third one is REV. This is the same enzyme or protein which is helping unspliced or partially spliced. As you can see, this is 4 kb, this is 9 kb in comparison to 2 kb. So 2 kb is a small size. These can be transported out of nucleus without any assistance. But if it is large in size, 4 kb or 9 kb, then it will require REV protein. This is called REV dependent. When they are translocated outside the nucleus into the cytoplasm, and then they will make different proteins. Right. So these things are written in the text. Actually, the RNA polymerase II, which is the main enzyme in the nucleus, will actually transcribe the viral genome, and different proteins will be synthesized thereafter. Okay. Then so this can be divided into this REV enzyme, independent and dependent. So independent is generally having at least one functional introns. REV itself is a 13 kilodalton sequence binding to RNA binding protein, which will be binding to a specific sequence. Okay, if you look here, it is produced from fully spliced. So this is complete splicing. So REV mRNA, it will come out. It is REV independent, and then it will making the REV protein. Then this REV protein will go and will help in the translocation of these unspliced and partially spliced mRNA coming out of the nucleus. So this is produced from fully spliced mRNAs. Binding of REV protein to the RRE. REV is actually the response element where this will bind. It is written here, REV response element, RRE. So this REV response element facilitate the export of unspliced and incompletely spliced viral RNAs from the nucleus to the cytoplasm, from nucleus to the cytoplasm, from here to here. Normally, RNA that contain the introns, that is actually unspliced or incompletely spliced RNA, are retained in the nucleus. So RNA that contain introns, they will be retained in the nucleus because if REV is not there. But if REV is made, then it will help in the transport of these mRNA, which are large in size, out of nucleus. One more important thing you need to discuss in this particular class only. If you look, these three genes are present in all the retroviruses, so GAG, POL, and ENV. Now this GAG polyprotein is actually having this capsid protein, which is actually P24, protein 24, 24 kilodalton, matrix protein, protein 17, and this nucleocapsid, NC. Nucleocapsid is actually having two type of proteins. that is P6, 6-chlordalton and 9-chlordalton protein. So we have not discussed this NC actually, but it's nucleocapsid protein. So need to go into the details of virus. This is the virus. It is having capsid here. So it is 24-chlordalton protein. This is matrix. So this is 17-chlordalton. And also it is having this nucleocapsid, which are having two kinds of proteins. One is 6-chlordalton, one is 9-chlordalton, right? It is written here, 6 and 9-chlordalton proteins are present. But all these proteins are coming from P55. So P55, 55-chlordalton protein is cleaved into these different forms. So it is written here that encoded structural 3 genes, that is GAG pol and ENB, gene give rise to the 55-chlordalton GAG protein. So this is a 55-chlordalton protein from where these different P24, 17, P6 and 9 proteins are derived. P55 is cleaved by the virally encoded protease. You know the virus is having 3 proteins or enzymes: reverse transcriptase, protease, and integrase. So protease will cleave these protein P55 into smaller proteins. Then there is a second enzyme called polymerase. This is reverse transcriptase, integrase, and protease. So this is the same gene pol, and it will encode all the 3 enzymes. So reverse transcriptase, protease, and integrase. IR for integrase. So it will encode 3 different article will be encoded. So initially polyprotein synthesized as a fusion product that is called GAG pol fusion protein from an unspliced RNA. As you can see from the diagram also, see here, this is 9 kb base pair of mRNA which is unspliced. With the help of REP protein, it will be exported into the cytoplasm, cytosol, and either it will act as a genomic RNA or GAG or GAG pol polyproteins will be synthesized. So it will be unspliced version, right? So the introns are not removed. This is single mRNA, therefore it can encode a fusion product that is called as GAG pol polyprotein. Now what you need to remember from here, this GAG pol fusion protein is actually P160. It is 160 kilodalton. And now it should be cleaved into the 2 smaller polyproteins or proteins, that is P120 and GP41, right? During the viral maturation, the virally encoded protease cleave the polyprotein away from the GAG. So virally encoded protease enzyme, this is protease, so it will cleave this GAG pol so that they can be separated. Not only this, the GAG polyprotein will be cleaved into the smaller versions. HIV1 protease is an aspartyl protease. So this actually we have discussed in our enzyme class. HIV1 protease, which is cleaving all these proteins, this 55 kilodalton protein or this ENV protein, which is actually GP41 and GP121, but initially it is 160 kilodalton protein. So this 160 kilodalton big protein should be cleaved into the 120 and 41, right? So these numbers are actually the molecular masses or the kilodalton of these protein weights. This is an aspartyl protease. What are aspartyl proteases? Those proteases, those enzymes which will cleave the protein at a specific aspartate residue. So these are called aspartate or aspartyl proteases. So it will recognize the D. What is D? D is aspartate. It will recognize the D in the protein. So this is called aspartyl proteases. Is required for cleavage of GAG polyprotein and GAG pol fusion protein. Okay, so during the viral maturation, integration protein mediates the insertion of now the third protein. We have also discussed this integrase, right? It is also coming from this polyprotein. So this integrase is required for the integration of double-stranded DNA into the host genome. Mediate the insertion of HIV proviral DNA, which is double-stranded DNA, into the genomic DNA in an infected cell. So this is the function of this integrase enzyme. Insertion of HIV proviral DNA, right? So it will be the function of integrase protein. The process is mediated by the three distinct functions of integrase. Okay, so one more thing you need to remember. One, we have discussed that this reverse transcriptase is having three roles. One is it is RNase H. So let me write here so that you can remember. One is this is reverse transcriptase. So it is having three roles. One is it is RNA dependent DNA polymerase. Dependent DNA polymerase. Right. Second function is it is a DNA dependent DNA polymerase. So it is a DNA dependent DNA polymerase. So you can write this same. Right. So DNA dependent DNA polymerase. The third functionality of reverse transcriptase is RNase H. I'm writing it again and again because this has been asked in. Okay, so this is important. Remember this. Reverse transcriptase is having three functionalities: RNA-dependent DNA polymerase, DNA-dependent DNA polymerase, and RNase H, which will degrade the RNA in a hybrid when the DNA and RNA hybrid. Okay. Now you need to remember three functionalities of ligase also. So ligase is an enzyme which is required to insert for the insertion of viral double-stranded DNA into the host genome. So the first functionality is, okay, so first functionality is an exonuclease activity. So exonuclease is an enzyme which will, exonuclease, it will degrade the polynucleotide, but at the ends. It is having exonuclease activity, trim the two nucleotides from each 3' end of the linear viral double-stranded DNA duplex. And then double-stranded DNA endonuclease activity. It is second is endonuclease activity. So it is having exonuclease activity. It is also having endonuclease activity. It is having both activities actually. Finally, the third one is, so this is actually required to cleave the host DNA at the integration site. So the site where this viral double-stranded DNA molecule is being integrated, at that site you need to cleave the host genome. So the endonuclease activity will be working. Finally, the third one is a ligase activity that forms a covalent linkage at each end of the proviral DNA. Finally, when it will be integrated into the genome or the DNA, double-stranded DNA, then the gap is sealed with this ligase activity. So it is having three activities. Now you need to remember this. It is an exonuclease, it is an endonuclease, and it is also a ligase because it is ligating both the ends so that this viral DNA can be integrated into the host chromosome or the DNA in the form of proviral DNA. So this proviral DNA is integrated finally with the help of this integrase enzyme. So integrase is having three functionalities. Now finally there is 160 Clodalton ENV protein that is actually making two glycoproteins, which will be expressed from a singly spliced mRNA. This 160 Clodalton protein will be cleaved to generate the GP41 and GP120. GP41 moiety contains the transmembrane domain of ENV. Okay, so this transmembrane domain is present inside the envelope, whereas the interaction between HIV and the CD4 receptor is mediated by GP120. I told you this several times that the CD4 is interacting with the virus particle with the help of GP120. Whereas 41 is actually the transmembrane domain. So it is present in the membrane, as I'm showing you this also. So if you remember the structure of virus, so this is the HIV virus, right? If you look here, GP120 is interacting with the CD4. So actually this is present outside. And GP41 is the present in this envelope. So this is integrated domain, right? Now what will happen, and another cell will come, that is an animal cell. So this virus should be small because this is, now we can annotate this. We can make another cell, right? So this is our second cell, which is large in size, which is an animal cell, right? So this virus will infect this animal cell, and this animal cell can be anything. This is generally T helper cell, but it can be a macrophage or a dendritic cell or a monocyte. Now, what should it have? This animal cell will have some receptor molecules which should be present. So let me draw something. So it is having some kind of receptors which will interact with these molecules, these GP120. Okay, so this GP120 is interacting with a molecule that is called as CD4. I hope this is clear. So these are CD4 molecules which are present over animal cell, and they are interacting with the viral GP120 animal cell. Right. Now you should remember one more thing as I have drawn this. So actually it also need a chemokine co-receptor molecule. So I'm drawing a chemokine co-receptor. So let me draw. It is also having chemokine co-receptor molecule which is present. Oh, sorry. I should change the color. So it is having chemokine co-receptor molecule also, which is helping this particular interaction making more strong, right? So this chemokine co-receptor is different actually. In case of all these cells, this chemokine co-receptor is called as CCR5, chemokine co-receptor 5, right? Whereas in this case, in case of T helper cell, this is called as CXCR4. So in case of T helper cell, this chemokine co-receptor is actually CXCR4 in case of T helper cells. The two molecules are required during interaction. One is CD4, one is chemokine co-receptor, which is CCR5 in case of macrophages and monocytes and dendritic cells, whereas it is CXCR4, or it is also called as fusin, as you remember, fusin. You can call it fusin. So either fusin or CXCR4 is required for the proper interaction between GP120 and CD4, right? So that's all for today, and I hope you will have several queries. So please ask if you are having some problem.